one of those things, just one of those crazy flings, one of those bells that now and then rings, just one of those things.
The Premier in his address did say that this building, referring to the NEPAC building and of course the Michael Herald Auditorium, that this won't be a white elephant.
No.
But there are going to be challenges to put together programs, groups, etc., to make sure that there's continuous activity.
Absolutely.
What have we got to do as an island to make sure that we make full benefit of the Performing Arts Centre?
Well, I mean, the rest of the world, everywhere is about promotion, marketing. Even the day of the opening, it wasn't clear to me whether it was an open invitation, whether anybody could come. And so since, people have said to me, you know, I didn't know about it. And so I think getting the word out is crucial to make sure that people don't miss what's going to be happening. I'm hoping in the future to come back with my own band. My band are a New Orleans-based band, very similarly come through the gospel tradition, very, very talented and can play everything. So we want to put on a big, you know, something nice for the people there with a lot of rhythm. And it won't be too sedate, but I expect people at the end to want to get up and dance. And you know, even though you're in a theatre, you can have a good time. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to really promote the theatre and let people know what's coming up, and that it won't be a white elephant. That would be a real tragedy, I think.
So there's work to be done.
There's work to be done. I mean, website, you know, making sure people know what's coming up. I don't know how well, or who's in charge of all the promotion, but that was going to be the biggest thing, I think, to make sure people keep coming.
Did you have the pleasure of meeting Michael Harold Sutton?
Yes, I played with Harold back in, it was over 7 years ago. It was back when I first came out with my mum, 2005. Great musician, great musician. So I was very, very pleased to see that it had been, you know, dedicated to his memory as well. Yeah, wonderful musician.
One person I interviewed after, the director of Culture on St. Kitts, Crichton Pension, said that he is the greatest musical talent that we have produced, which surprised me, because as a Kittitian, I thought he would say Ellie Matt.
Somebody, yeah,
somebody
sure.
from over there.
Yeah.
What was Harold's great strength?
I wouldn't be able to say because I didn't work with him on a continuous level, but just from what I heard, the gospel background as well, it means you can actually play anything, and he had a big appreciation for jazz, for other sorts of music. I think that is a great strength, to be an all-rounder, not to find yourself in one particular category, but to be able to diversify and appreciate other things. And I think that would be what I would say about my meeting of Sutton, is that he appreciated other things. A lot of gospel musicians don't want to play anything else.
Okay.
They feel like sometimes there's a betrayal to play secular music. So sometimes people have a moral issue when it comes to actually a career or earning and not singing the church music. But I think sometimes you have to broaden your horizons a bit.
So you've been down here for a couple of months, you said?
I was here in January.
Oh, you were here in January?
Yeah, I was here in January. We did a fundraising concert. I've got some friends at the Coconut Grove, and their daughter attends the Lynn Jeffers School, and they said they needed us to raise some money and help out the school. We raised a few $1,000s, I think, and I'm looking forward to go back into the school, meet the children again. I went to meet the children. We had a wonderful, rousing assembly, which ended with This Little Light of Mine, one of my favourite songs. And so, yeah, we had a great time at the school. So I always, whenever I come, I hope I'm adding something. I'm able to do something.
You feel the urge to give back to the place which raised your family?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And you were saying earlier that you have just come out of the studio?
Yes.
Tell us about that project.
I've just completed an album, and it's the first album in 7 years, so it was quite significant. From my trips to New Orleans and being inspired, there's I've written some songs on the album, and the rest are jazz standards like classics and New Orleans classics, and that will be out in the summer. So I'm hoping really that my band will be back here.
So you'll have the launch here in Nevis?
Yeah, we could do something in the Nevis. Failing that would be around September, around Independence, if we have to travel elsewhere first. but come back to Nevis and then perform at the Cultural Arts Centre. Yeah.
Now you were saying the first album in 7 years. How many albums total you got?
In total of three albums. But I do collaborate with other people on some of my music. They're not always solo albums, but this one was all of my own making, my own design, and the choice of musicians. They're New Orleans' finest musicians. Yeah. So Nevis got something to look out for.
So
Nevis, nice.
What's the makeup of your album?
The band is drums, bass, piano, and trumpet. And the trumpet player is a very renowned trumpet player called Wendell Brunius. Okay. Comes from a long line of traditions from musicians from New Orleans, and plays with Harry Connick Jr. So they're all the top. And I can't wait to show them off, show Nevis off. Yeah, and they're itching to come to the Caribbean, so there might be some cultural exchange.
Something to look
especially
forward
with the drumming. You know, we might teach the New Orleans people something. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many songs on that album?
13.
13. Yeah. Any sneak previews for us?
Yeah, I might get you a sneak preview, Steve.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I'll get something to you.
What do you do for voice maintenance?
A lot of breathing exercises. A lot of. You've got to be quite good to be a singer. This is a no-no, but.
Alcohol?
Yeah, really. Drink a lot of fluids, a lot of water, a lot of water. Yeah, just being sensible, not really shouting, not, you know, I haven't got any children, so I don't have to shout.
Okay, that's good.
It helps. It helps.
Now, the Premier did say that there should be a rebirth, a renaissance, where the arts flourished.
I'd love to see that.
You'd love to see that.
Absolutely.
Where would you like to see Nevis be 5 years from now in terms of the arts?
I mean, I've been coming backwards and forwards for so long. Wherever I go in the world, if I'm interviewed or, you know, I've got concerts in Germany and it's all in German, and then suddenly they just hear Nevis, because everywhere I go in the world I tell people I'm from Nevis and people still say, where? Which is a nice thing, that it's our secret little paradise, but we want people to know, you know, what Nevis has produced. So I'd love to see an arts, you know, I'd love to see this renaissance happening now, especially with a theatre, especially with a forum for that to happen. How in the next 5 years? I would like to see a bigger festival on Nevis. I think for me,
like
festival,
a jazz festival, like they have
jazz or blues, a blues festival. When I go to New Orleans, they're so proud of their traditions. You know, there are people that have horse and carts and take people around the French Quarter to talk about the history, and all these things I think would bring people to Nevis. The tourist aspect of it, to talk about the history, to show Nevis off. And then to have the excitement of the nightlife, where there'll be lots of different venues and lots of different spots for them to hear music from all over the world.
The French Quarter? French?
We'll bring it to the French Quarter.
French Quarter?
Yeah.
What is it? Speak a little bit more about New Orleans. Of course, the home of jazz.
The home of jazz music.
Seems to mean so many things to so many people.
Yeah.
You mentioned Mahalia's home.
Yeah, Louis Armstrong. Yeah. Well, as I say, very similar traditions to the Caribbean, for the similar history. The French Quarter, as it is now, historically was where the plantation's owners, the main home, it's like the millionaire's row of the day. And it was a segregated area. So obviously, in current terms, as a black woman, to be there and feel like you're queen of the French Quarter is quite significant, I think. But historically, that's where the home of jazz, that's how we know it to be the home of jazz, from Africans playing drums in Congo Square, and then from the earliest recordings, and of course Louis Armstrong being sort of the king of swing, beginning of the swing period. So everything actually comes from New Orleans, from Africa via New Orleans, with that fusion of classical music, European influence, and the African drum, bringing about what we know as jazz.
We didn't speak too much about your involvement in England. I know growing up in a West Indian church there, you've spoken about Germany and New Orleans. How about your performances in England?
In England, the jazz culture is not as strong. I think because of Germany's history as well, the culture there is much, there's a bigger following for jazz. And for some reason in Switzerland, and there's some wonderful jazz festivals that I get to work on all over Europe. So I don't really stay in the UK too much because it's cold.
Mm-hmm. It's not like here.
It's not.
Weather, huh? Really? They say it's going to be the coldest May in 100 years.
You see, Steve? So you can understand why I'm not there very much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get to travel throughout Europe. This year I'll be going to Prague for the first time in November.
Mm-hmm.
And I have German tours throughout, being gospel and jazz. So most of my work really does take me around Europe. England, the culture of music, England is more pop.
Pop, yeah.
It's pop music.
Mm-hmm.
With, you know, the biggest pop stars have always come out of Europe, out of England particularly, and that's more the culture. Pubs, whereas Europe has the festivals and concert halls, which is where Mahalia and some of the greats would have played coming out of the States. There's always been an appreciation for musicians in Europe.
Okay, let's divert a little bit then to my favorite reggae artist, Bob Marley.
Yeah.
What has he meant for music internationally?
What has Bob meant internationally? Obviously Jamaica was significantly put on the map by Bob Marley. As an artist, for me, I wanted to write songs when I heard Bob Marley's music. That inspired me to write songs, but it inspired me to want my music to be a certain level, not just writing about anything. And Bob drew very heavily off the scriptures, so there was a lot of depth in his writing. There was always a deeper meaning, deeper message. So he was one of the greats, yeah, another one of the greats from our culture. Our culture's so rich, you know, for artists that, you know, from the Caribbean.
And of course he took Marcus Garvey's black Pan-Africanist, a speech he made, and wove that into Redemption Song.
Yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts? Yeah?
Well, that's what I mean about the depth. To take a Haile Selassie speech and craft it, you know, into, so poetically, into music is genius. But again, I think what inspired me when I was in church was the scriptural depth of what he, you know, to put the physical context and to match it to the spiritual is an art in itself. But beautiful music as well. Everybody gets down to Bob Marley. You know, everything's there.
The natural mystic.
The natural mystic. The natural mystic.
I'll put you on the spot again.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of Redemption Song. It's my favorite.
Oh, pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Oh, won't you help me sing this song of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption song, this song of freedom.
Such a great song and such a great rendition last Saturday.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What's in store for the rest of your time on Nevis?
Preparation to come back. Everything needs preparation and planning. Just to let everybody know that I'd like to come back with the New Orleans gentlemen, the fine fellas themselves. I'd love to do some workshops, encourage the youngsters of Nevis to pick up instruments, to be playing trumpet and trombone. And when you can play an instrument and you can take it anywhere, you never know where in the world you'll find yourself.
It's better than picking up guns, huh?
Absolutely, pick up an instrument and make the people feel good, which is what my dad used to say. Before my dad passed away, when I'd come home from a performance, he came back to England for a very short time, and he would say to me, "Did you make the people feel good?" He never said, "Did you sing well?" "Did you make the people feel good?" And I would say, "Yeah, I think it went well," because I would know the reaction. And he'd say, "Did the people look after you?" And he left that for me. Those two questions are most important. If someone's taking care of me, my job is to make sure the people feel good.
You obviously treasure your bond with Nevis.
Very, very deeply. Very, very deeply. Even more so now my parents aren't here physically. I feel them, I sense them, that they're proud that I've come back, and they know how proud I am of being a Nevisian, a UK-born Nevisian.
So glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
So finally, what about original songs? You've got some of those?
Yep, yep. On the new album.
New album?
Yeah, they're very secret at the moment because...
So you won't give us a little...
No, because they're such hot property.
Hot property?
They're such hot property. But yeah, I will obviously like you to hear a sneak preview of some of the other standards on the album, and we'll get those.
Well, I must tell you that when I heard you last Saturday, and I saw the performances on television, I called Alman up and said, "We have to interview this woman because I think you had so much to share."
Thank you.
And
yeah.
I figured you'd be such a nice person to interview, and you haven't disappointed.
Oh, thank you very much, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you
a
for
real
all
pleasure.
that you do for music.
Thank you.
For Nevis.
And to make the people feel good.
Nevis nice.
Nevis nice. Nevis nice.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Nevis nice. Yeah.
It's a song of such great appeal.
Oh, my band have to learn that when we come back. For absolutely, for sure. Nevis nice.
Nevis nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of those